This happened a few years ago. I'm 6'1" and pretty fit. I was taking my dog out at about 11:45 p.m. A light drizzle of rain was beginning to come down, when all of a sudden, I hear a strange sound. It was similar to the sound the apes made in the movie Planet of the Apes. Now, I thought I was just hearing things. I live in Virginia. I know there are no monkeys out here. Finishing up, I brought my dog back inside quickly. I locked all the doors and closed the blinds just in case. Before long, I hit the pillow and I was fast asleep. At some point, I woke up. I checked my phone, which read 2:33. I was wondering what in the world woke me up. I looked over towards the glass door that leads to a small deck. It didn't have a blind, so when I looked out it, I saw this dark shape just perched on the deck rail. Now the deck was 2 stories up, and the deck hangs off the house, so I was then wondering how in the world this thing or person got up there. I looked away just for a moment, and when I looked back, I saw the bright yellow eyes of the thing. I couldn't make out any other features, except for the cloth-looking stuff around its waist. I swear the moment I blinked, it was gone. This takes me to the second day. There was no rain that day and nothing odd happened. 3 days after that, a heavy rain had begun coming down. I was able to take my mind off that weird creature I saw. I left my blinds open that day and fell asleep on the couch. I suddenly woke up to a cracking noise. I had left the outdoor lights on. I looked at the window, and there it was again, that thing from before, now trying to get inside. I got a much better look at this thing, and I thought the devil himself was coming to get me. It had gray sagging skin, too loose for its own body. It was very thin and tall, ribs sticking out like a sore thumb. The eyes were bright yellow, and the odd thing about it was it had these sort of antlers protruding from the head, and they had stuff hanging off of them. I looked at its body again. It looked decayed. Suddenly, it let out some kind of screech, and it was gone again. When I went outside the next day, there in the mud were some human-looking footprints, with coyote prints leading away. I wish I could say I never saw it again, but I did. About 2 weeks later, in the middle of the day, a light rain, much like the first time I saw it, came down. I spotted the thing again. It was standing in the field outside my house. Without a thought, I ran back inside, grabbing my .270 caliber rifle. I aimed at it and fired a single shot. I watched as that thing screamed that same god-awful noise, then went the other way. The day after that, I asked to stay with my parents until I found a new house, as I was definitely not renting that one anymore. I now live in Northern Virginia, and I've never had any problems since. But sometimes when I'm alone, I see those yellow eyes and hear the god-awful screech in the distance. If you live in the southeastern part of Virginia, I warn you, there's something that only hunts in the rain. Before I begin, this is not my own personal story. This is a story my dad told me some time ago, and I'm now sharing it with all of you, as it recently came back to my mind. This happened in the early 90s. At the time, there was a war in my country, so my dad ended up in the military like everyone else his age. After his training, he was sent to some old military outpost in the middle of nowhere. The nearest form of civilization was a small village located 15 kilometers, or 9.3 miles, from where he was stationed. So yeah, it was literally in the middle of nowhere. He was stationed there with one other guy named Sam. Their only job was to be on lookout for enemy troops. But since the outpost was located so far from where the war was taking place, Sam and my dad didn't really have anything to do. They kind of just hung out, playing card games, drinking cheap beer to keep themselves occupied. The outpost was small, and it overlooked a forest, with a metal fence surrounding the forest and ending at the outpost. The first few weeks went by, and everything was exactly the same as when they arrived, quiet and peaceful. Then, one night, while they were overlooking the forest, something happened. They were talking like they normally did, not really paying attention to the forest, since the war was basically on the other side of the country. But something felt off. Both my dad and Sam got this weird, nauseating feeling. All of a sudden, they started feeling uncomfortable, like someone was watching them. They both stopped talking and were scanning the area. However, there was no one near them. How could there be? They were miles away from anyone, and they were the only people stationed at that outpost. A few minutes passed, and the feeling still didn't go away. Confused and frightened, they turned to the forest. That's when they finally saw it. In the woods, right in the middle of a clearing, the two of them laid eyes on something. My dad described it to me as a humanoid figure, about 4 or 5 feet tall, with both feathers and skin. He couldn't really tell what color it was because it was dark, but he said it seemed to be all black, with glowing eyes, kind of like a cat's. It was staring right at the two of them. Sam and my dad didn't know what to do. They didn't know what they were looking at, so they just stared back at it. About 5 seconds later, after making eye contact with it, the creature made the most loud and horrific scream my dad had ever heard. He said it sounded like a mix of a cat hissing, a deer screaming, and a man yelling for his life, all at the same time. Scared out of their minds, they readied their guns and were prepared to shoot this creature. That's when it started running. My dad says it ran as fast as a cheetah, but luckily not at them. The creature started running straight for the big metal fence that was around the forest and the outpost. It made a giant hole in it and continued running, never to be seen again. Safe to say that neither my dad nor Sam got any sleep that night. They would be at that outpost for about a month altogether, and they say they never experienced something like that ever again. Sam and Dad stayed close friends after the war, and Sam became a good family friend. Both he and my dad say the same story, never changing any details. They swear that what they saw was real. I can't really explain what that was, because in this part of the world, in Southeast Europe, there's nothing that even closely resembles what they saw, either from old folk tales or actual animals. The only thing I can think of is a skinwalker, but far as I know, they're only in America, so I really have no idea. Almost a decade ago, our home was broken into while we were on vacation. The burglars took everything. From jewelry to televisions, our house was stripped bare. My mother was distraught, of course, but thankful that it occurred while no one was home. They were just things, after all, replaceable. My father was furious, immediately calling the police. It's the kind of thing that happens to someone else, or so we thought. Unfortunately, we're all someone else to someone else, you know? As soon as possible, we had some security cameras installed. One from the top of the garage facing down the driveway to the street, one facing the back garden, and one on each side in the alleys of the house. Also, we got a fancy doorbell cam that was brand new at the time. The fact that it connected to our phones gave us peace of mind and overall comfort. Now, fast forward to 2016. My parents were planning an overnight trip to my aunt's house a few hours away. Being an angsty teen, I obviously rebelled. I love my aunt, but I never liked her house. It was always so stuffy, and I ended up having to sleep in the room just full of all these creepy dolls. No, thank you. After a full discussion with my parents, and considering I just turned 15, they felt comfortable finally letting me be in charge of the house for a night, and even inviting a friend over for a sleepover. I was pumped up about the freedom, The trauma of the break-in from back then was finally loosening on my mother's mind. They left $20 for pizza and told me to have fun before heading out. I settled in with some video games while I waited for my friend. After a few minutes of gaming, my phone rang. I glanced down to see the friend in question was calling me.
Hello?
I answered. There was a quick pause before I heard a sigh.
Hey, bud, it's me. I'm calling to inform you that I have been grounded.
I rolled my eyes. This wasn't the first time I've gotten a call like this. It's part of his mom's punishment. I wonder what he did this time.
After this call, my phone and all the other electronic privileges I have will be revoked. I'm sorry I won't be allowed to see you tonight, but I've been disrespectful and I'm facing consequences for all my actions. I'll see you as soon as I can.
I sighed and tapped my foot. Sure, dude. I get it. Do better, I guess. I chuckled and said goodbye. After hanging up, I realized I no longer had any plans tonight. I guess I could just play a video game. I checked my online hubs. No other friends were on, and I didn't really like to play alone. With another sigh, I got up to head downstairs. After a few hours of boredom, I started binging some show. I was getting into it when I thought I heard something outside. I paused the TV and listened. Sure enough, I heard it again. A soft scratching sound, followed by a quiet mewing. Now, we don't own a cat, and as far as I knew, I haven't seen any strays in our neighborhood before. Curious, I stood up and started walking to the door. The mewing sounded a bit odd, leading me to believe the poor thing was hurt or something. Regardless, my intuition informed me that there was something strange about it. Right as I approached the door, I stopped, realizing what the oddity was. That meowing sound had no variation. Is that right? Like it sounded exactly the same every time. Beginning to feel a bit nervous, I suddenly remembered the doorbell camera. I pulled it up on my phone, and my blood ran cold. Now, until that point, I always thought that the term was a dramatic figure of speech. But no, that shiver that ran through my body was very, very real. The image on the recording showed not a cat, but a filthy-looking hunched-over man. His hair was long, dark, and greasy, hanging in front of his dirty face. His long, nasty fingernails were chipped and yellow, gently scratching down our door. His eyes were wide and crazed, the pupils extremely dilated and totally fixated on the doorknob. The worst thing, though, was that he was smiling the whole time. This horrifying person meowed again, and I fought the urge to vomit. I quietly backed away from the door and into the bathroom, where I called the police. The officers arrived in record time and apprehended the freak. We watched back all the security tapes, and it was uncomfortable to say the least. He had approached the door from the street. His movements had been very strange and erratic. He stopped in front of our house and, no joke, stood completely still for about 15 minutes, before suddenly dropping to all fours and crawling up to the door. Apparently, he was twacked, completely out of his mind. I have no idea what he was on, or what his intentions were if I had let him in, but I doubt they would have been good. I sincerely hope he gets the help he needs. My parents, once again, were absolutely freaked out. I can't say I blame them after they had to come home early to this mess. I doubted I'd ever be left alone again until I was 18. But that's neither here nor there. All I can say is thank God for doorbell cameras. In Missouri, there are loads of wooded areas you can hunt in. I'm a hunter at the age of 22, and I will always remember this horrific event. I had asked my parents if I could go hunting with my uncle. They agreed, so I packed my hunting gear in my truck and drove over to my uncle's house. The drive was about 3 hours long. As soon as I got there, my two friends, Ruki and Luna, were waiting for me. They had been talking to my uncle. "Hey, sport, you all set to go?" My uncle smiled as I got my hunting gear from the truck. "Ready as I'll ever be," I answered back. All four of us got in the hunting truck my uncle owned at the time, and we drove off into his property. His property is a huge piece of land, mostly a wooded area. You could see trees for miles and miles. As we drove, my friends and I discussed ex-boyfriends and drama, and soon we arrived at the hunting spot. My uncle got out and told us, "All right, Luna and I will go north, Rookie and Ash, you two go west." And my uncle looked at us seriously. "Do not get separated, all right? These woods are dangerous when night falls." We all nodded, and we went in our respective directions. I couldn't help but think that my uncle knew something about these woods. He always told us that warning every time. Rookie and I kept walking, soon setting up camp among the trees. I had with me a rifle and pistol, and Rookie had his 9-gauge and a small pistol just in case. We sat and waited as the sun began to go down. Suddenly, from the dark, I heard a branch snap. I thought it was my uncle coming to check on us, but what I heard next sent shivers down my spine. A deafening howl coming from right behind us, only 10 feet away or so. "Ash, you heard that, right?" Rookie asked as he held his 9-gauge in his hands. Yeah, I heard it," I replied, holding my rifle close as the sound of heavy footsteps got closer and closer. We aimed our guns in the direction of the noise. From the dark, I saw what looked to be a bear, but bears don't make that kind of howl. I fired the first shot then. Whatever it was screamed in pain. It wasn't enough to kill it, but it was enough to tee it off. We looked at each other and ran. We soon heard it behind us, chasing us. I whistled the kind of whistle my uncle had taught me whenever I was in trouble or needed help if we were far away. At the same time, I heard Rookie taking 2 shots at the thing behind us before reloading his 9-gauge. When my eyes adjusted, I turned around as I ran, getting a better look at our pursuer. It looked like a person with a wolf skull, but the way it moved and looked everywhere else, I couldn't tell if it was man or something else. 2 more gunshots rang out, hitting the creature in the head and in the chest. It was my uncle and Luna. I remember thinking this couldn't be real. Whatever this creature was had taken multiple shots and was not slowing down. We made it back to the truck, and after we climbed in, the creature jumped onto it. As we drove away, we managed to shake the creature off. It rolled onto the ground, howling again. As soon as we made it back to the house, we locked all the doors, every window, and even the basement. My uncle called a Cherokee friend that lived down the road for help. He said that we should not leave the house until morning. We went into our rooms and fell into light, scared slumber. When the next day came, our Cherokee friend came by, performing a blessing ritual on us and the house. "What do you think it was?" my uncle asked his friend, as he gave an odd look. "Something whose name we cannot speak." That gave me shivers. At the time, I remember thinking it was a werewolf, but the thought of something like a Wendigo or Skinwalker being in Missouri, that's creepy. Never go into the woods alone or unarmed.